1203, 1204. But just a little idea on what we're going to be working on. Let me share my screen so you have a better understanding of what we're going to be working with today. Okay, so basically what we're going to use this amazing Google UI automation library called Puppeteer. They make, clicking through things, typing things in an automation, just context extremely easy. So you can automate it to generate screenshots, PDFs of pages. What I did was essentially automated my job search through this. When coronavirus started, I automated looking through all of the targets in my area to see if hand sanitizer was still available, if they had the reusable masks. Very recently I automated the CVS the CVS website to see where vaccines were available, and was able to find a vaccine for my friend's grandma, which was very, very cool. And so today what we're going to do is something that I thought will be very helpful for people here, and just generally is Workday is one of the most common websites that people use for companies use to get job applications in, and it's very notoriously terrible for having you apply and put your resume and then put everything in a form. So we're going to automate that so you don't have to waste a lot of time while you're putting your information and your resume, and then you're filling out those forms for every single application. So since the Workday applications are pretty standardized, we're going to compare like Walmart and Target's applications and see how, if we write just 10 lines of code, it's going to work uniformly for both of them. And I think this is a good time to get started. So what we're going to do is I've created this boilerplate GitHub code, which has all of the nitty-gritty boring stuff that you don't need to worry about, but this will make it easier for us to get started and cover more ground. So I'm just going to share it here in the chat. Figure out where the chat is. Switch meetings. Okay. Oh my God, where is this chat? Yeah, perfect. So here's the boilerplate code that we're going to be working on. And in order to follow along and in order to do this yourself, you should have Node and Git installed already on your computer. If not, we can quickly go through this. So to install Node, you would need to go, and this is for Mac machines. I'm not very certain about how this works on Windows machines, but it's very similar, and you can Google the instructions to go, and it should work for both cases. So in order to install Node, you would be opening a terminal and just going to the Node website, and let's see, downloads, LTS, Mac OS installer, and you can install it that way. And then for GitHub, let's see, GitHub installing code, install Git. Yeah. So to do this, you can first just go to your terminal, see if Git is installed, check the version for it. If not, see, it's installed here. Is everybody able to see my terminal? Just making sure that it's accessible. Can you just respond to the chat? Okay. If you're not able to see the terminal, so this is how we're going to do this. You need Git, you need Node, you need npm, which you can install through Node. And all of these, check if you have this, you just check, hey, npm version, something's showing up. Node version, something's showing up. Oh, wait, Node, we know. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so Node this is also, one of the commands. So if it's not showing up with version, if it shows up with V, that's okay too. If it's not, then you need to install it, and it's just a quick Google search. So we're gonna quickly go through what Puppeteer does and how we can just work through it to automate stuff. And please let me know if you can't see like the VS Code, or if you can't see my terminal, because that's very important to follow along. And I'm actually not the most proficient at Zoom for somebody who is doing this all the time, which is very embarrassing. So okay, let's get started. Cannot see terminal. All right, let me share just everything. Okay, can you see it now? Type hello. Okay, awesome. So, all right. What we're gonna do is, the way to get this Git repo is go into your terminal, write the words git clone. Okay, you got the repo from here, you got that link, and then you can change the name on whatever you want to save it, and the word you want the folder to be, you write it after that. And the word that we would want right now, like see HackOR. Okay, so we've cloned it all in HackOR, then we type cd HackOR, because that's the name of our folder, and we're entering that folder once we type it. And now that we're in here, then one step we need to do before we can actually start working on this folder is type the words npm install. And what it does is basically it installs every little JavaScript package and library that I have already installed for this template to work. And one important thing that it's installing here is called Chromium, which is a lightweight version of Google Chrome. So you'll have your own Google Chrome to test stuff in, which is very cool. And it also, helps, because sometimes when you're automating stuff, you get blacklisted from websites if you're not doing like wait times properly, and they're like, oh, this looks like a bot, and we're gonna blacklist this website, this person. And so when you are going through Chromium instead of Chrome, you can still access that website through Chrome. So that's a good way to, be doing some web scraping without being banned from Amazon or something forever. And so now that we're in here, what I'm going to do is the code that I just typed, code dot, code space dot, opens up my code editor, which is VS Code. Is everybody able to see this? What we're going to do is I'm just going to go through a little bit on what the repo is. So now whatever was in this GitHub repo is now also in our Visual Studio Code code editor, so we can make changes to it. And what this basically is doing right now is just telling Puppeteer, hey, we've installed this, we want to use Chromium and to use these directions. And the main files that you want to look at is what we're doing in index.js is just like telling it, hey, we want to start the browser. Then we go to browser, and we're having a couple console logs that are going to tell us if the browser is starting, or if there was an error in creating a browser instance and what we want to do. So right now what I have done is like headless is false, aka we will see Chromium actually doing stuff. And that's very cool to see it like happen like magic. And what we're gonna do right now is the file that we want to look at mainly is page scraper, but the function that we're gonna use here is in page controller, and that's basically getting our browser instance and telling it, hey, we're gonna start, and we're gonna start it in page scraper. So we've imported our scraper object, and here we're using this just scraper.browser function that we wrote in page controller. And now we can start entering our following code. And before we even enter anything, just to make sure everything is working. And one cool thing about VS Code is you have this internal like terminal. Let me know if you guys can't see the terminal or anything, but yeah. Before we even start, just to make sure everything is working, we run this command npm run start, which is going to be our failsafe, and it's going to tell us what's happening. And now, like, are you able to see on this Google Chrome instance opened, and this, like, you know, we have a blank page here because we mentioned, hey, we want to open a new page, which opened a blank page for us. And then we opened this URL, which was this, like, you know, IMDb page that we have. And then we waited for 5 seconds. And then we closed the browser, and then we console log program completed. And so you see all of these console logs that are happening in our terminal that are telling us what's happening. So as we write, we're gonna keep, you know, adding these console logs to make sure everything is going well. So now when we start, let's, instead of doing that, we're gonna change the URL that we're going to be working with and put this workday one, and we're going to automate all of this in the next 30 minutes. It's going to be very cool. Okay, so let's go through this. Now what we want to do right now is, first of all, I'm going to close this because we don't want it to close after 5 seconds, because we're going to be debugging a little bit. But once, when the program runs, you want that browser closed when it ends. But like for right now, let's comment it out and let's see what we get. Are we getting the link that we're looking for? And Chromium here opens up the workday page that we're looking for, but we don't want to, you know, sign in. We want to create a new account. So this is going to be the bulk of what you're going to be doing. So what we're going to be working with is this, you know, console. Okay, let's see here. And the way to open this console is you can do a couple things. You can either use Command-Shift-I on your keyboard, which is what I was using, but you can also go to the element you need and just around there, double click, inspect, and you click inspect on there, and this opens up. And what you want to do is you want to right click here for the inspect button, and you want to click copy selector. This is very important. Do not copy anything else, just copy the selector. And now we're back at our page scraper page. And now we're gonna click right await page.click. And we write the selector, and let's see. Wait, are we making sure that's the right one? So another way to make sure this is the right one, because I'm not sure if that one's the right one. Yep. So we know that this is the right one. It says data automation ID. It's a button. It says create account, which are the words here. So this, like, basic HTML code will tell you if you're in the right place. So right click again, get the right selector this time, add it on here. The reason I was sure that that wasn't the right selector is because the more nested your button is going to be, the bigger the selector is going to be most of the time. So you want to make sure that you know, click on the right thing, but if not, you'll like try and test it out and you'll know what to do. And another thing I'll write is a page timeout, so we know what's happening, and we'll just do a 1 second timeout. So 1000, it does it in like milliseconds, so you want to do that. And to end the existing program that we had in Chromium, we're gonna use the keyboard keys Control and C. And we've closed that, and now let's just run npm run start again and see what's happening. If you have any questions, please feel free to add it in the chat. I'll be looking at the chat momentarily. And right now, so we're in the sign in page, and then see, it automatically changed to the create account page. And that might not be, you know, as obvious, but now we're going to do something that's going to tell us the cool, let's try this again, and that's going to show us exactly what's happening. So what we're going to do now is, now that we've gotten to the create account page, is we have this email address and password slots that we want to like automatically fill in. So let's find the selectors for these. we have this input, we copy the selector. This is going to be like very easy tasks to do. And now we're going to go here and let's just put all of our URLs here. Actually, let's put them in the function. Let's put all of our variables here, and let's see, let email is equal to sample email at gmail.com, and then the password. I know they have requirements for passwords, so it's going to be password.com 1 2 exclamation. And so we're going to do the same thing where we're going to write await page, but instead of click, we're going to write type. No, what's await page dot. Let's see where we have it in here. Workday, what's the command for this? Yep, await page dot type. I'm just second guessing myself. Okay, and we have the selector here, input.7, and we save it, we start it, and I'm going to show like a fun thing that we can do if you want to see it in action too after this. So right now, what we have is it clicks the create account page, and then it's not entering. What's happening? Oh, we didn't say what we wanted it to type. My bad. Type, and then we type the email, and then let's start it again. So we go from the sign-in page to the create account page, and now it enters our email. And we're going to do the same thing for the passwords. So let's get these selectors. Copy selector. Await page dot type. This is our selector. And we're going to use password here. So remember these variables that we defined here, we're just going to enter them here and call them back. And so now that we see that it's input 7, input 8, I think the other password is just going to be the same. So let's try to do this and just make this input 9 and see if our magic is happening. So by the way, does anybody have any questions? Let's see. Okay, everyone. And so now, see, we have our password, we have our verify new password, and now we want to click on create new account. And I know this is going to take like a day to actually initialize, and I'm going to put, I have like the Workday final code too. So you want to learn it yourself, but if you want to use the one on my GitHub website, that you can do that too. And so here we get the selector, and we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to put this await page, wait for timeout. Just we wait for a second so we see what's happening. In case there's an error, we can grab it. And if you see in your terminal, if there's going to be an error, that's where it's going to show up. So this is your best friend. And now we're going to complete our sign up form and automate that fully with just this click button, and it's going to be very fun. So we do that, and let's run it. And we're in. We created the account, we entered, and the thing about Workday is it doesn't require you to verify and go back to your Gmail and click on it. So that makes it really easy to get into it. And we're gonna go do this like second half, but before we do it, I want to just make sure like Walmart's not going to be the only place you apply to. The reason we're automating this is not for one job application, but for 100. job applications. So let's see, Workday, Target. Just Target careers. Careers at Target. Internships, which is what I think a lot of you are looking at, and software engineering internship, get that link. Okay. So autofill with resume, and it's gonna get us to the same like sign in page that we had. And now instead of the Walmart page, we go and we change the URL. So let's comment this out. We started here. And we're gonna see if all of our code carries forward or if we're just wasting time. On the Target website, and it's gonna do the same thing that we were doing on the Walmart website, and it's gonna create our account here. So you automate it on one page, and you can, you know, like go through 100, 200, 300 applications in a day once you automated this entire process, which is very cool. And I know it's like a little bit on the weird and ethical side, but like, you know, all the companies have ATS softwares and they do this thing all the time. And also having this side project can be interesting and can get you that job, because actually automating my you know, applications was the most interesting project I talked about in my jobs and like interviews. And now I'm working as a front-end engineer for this startup called Invisible AI in Silicon Valley, and they do really, really cool stuff. And I don't think I would have gotten that job if I wasn't doing, you know, all of this stuff on the side. So, and also, like, if I wasn't frank about, hey, I automated this and I didn't even say hello to you, but like I had a software doing it, but I like your company. So now that we have this, let's try this again. So the one thing that's going to be, now that we're testing it, it's going to give us an error for the email address because we've already created the account and it's not going to let us sign in. So the one thing we can do right now is, I know the Walmart website was a little better about this, but usually what you want to do is, instead of automating it to the create account thing, when you figured it all out, you wouldn't need to go to the sign in part. But now that we're, you know, going back and forth a lot of times, we're going to have to do it again and again. So it might be easier to just like automate the sign in option, or to just, you know, test on a website like Walmart where they like, oh, sign into the account. Okay, let's just change the email address for a little bit. And now we're here. Yes. So we're gonna just change the variable a little bit when we're testing and do like a little testing here. And now we're gonna do two things. So autofill with resume. So one thing I can do here is show you how bad this technology is. So I have my resume on here, Surbhi resume, and I'm gonna upload it. And there's going to be a lot of problems here. So it's going to fill, like it didn't fill any of my name out from the resume or my address. It got like my location, which is nice. It didn't get my phone number, and all of that has to be done manually. So when I automated this, I just, instead of autofill from my resume, which would put some incorrect information on there, I just did, you know, add stuff manually. Here, add manually, so I could make sure that I was putting everything that I needed in here without an error. So now we're going to see another interesting type of box. So let's take a look here. This is not an enter box. This is a selection box. So to automate this would be a little bit different, but the same. Instead of like, you know, writing anything, you would just click it and you get the selector from here. And even though it says an input box, because they think it's, you know, some like a text box, but it's actually a clicking box. So you're going to get the selector for it, but instead of inputting anything, you're just going to do a click. And since we change pages, what I, you know, try to do is always wait for a couple seconds just for the page to load. And so let's do 2 seconds here, and then page click, and then what we're going to do is sample email 1. We're just going to keep changing that here, and then just to make things faster, once it's been clicked, or just once it's been clicked, wait another second, click on one of these random things. Okay, so we're going to do a lot of clicking here since it's a required question. Get this selector. And now you're going to notice something that we're doing is we're going to repeat all of this code again and again. And this is something that is a big no-no. We'll see if this works, but then we're going to find a way that we're not repeating wait for timeout, click, wait for timeout, click, wait for timeout, click every single time. And we're going to write a function which will automate, which will make this code smaller so we're not repeating it. Because one of the biggest principles of coding is never repeat, don't repeat yourself. So we've logged in. Oh, we forgot to click on one of these. So that's going to give us an error, but now we'll see what an error message looks like and what to do when that happens. So here we see it's starting, it's opening the browser, it's navigating, but now it says could not resolve the browser instance because no node selector found for input 1. And that tells us that here we missed something, and it, you know, completely shuts down our program, which is fine, except for when you're maybe automating something. You're on a website and you're like, hey, give me every single job posting on here, like 100 job postings. And when it stops at a random number. You don't know where it stopped. You wanted it to go all the way. You wanted it to just pause instead of stopping. So we're going to do a JavaScript, very neat JavaScript thing called a promise. And we're going to do a try and catch function where if we're not able to get something, we return an error instead of, you know, making the program completely blow up. Does anybody have questions on what we've gone through so far? Like, I haven't seen anything in the chat yet, but feel free to like add something if you have questions. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first write a function so we're not repeating this all the time. And we're also going to do a try and catch statement. So we are not, you know, making our program go crazy the second there's an error. So let's write one for, we're going to write 2 functions, one for type and one for click. And just to save time, I've already written it. And I'm just going to show you how it works. So we have our page scraper here, and we have these type text and click button functions. And we're just going to add them here. And we'll go through, when we go through this, I'll also talk about what these terms are, like async await. I know a lot of you have had background with JavaScript, but a lot of you are seeing this for the first time, and this might be a little bit confusing. So we'll go through this line by line just to make sure everybody's understanding what's happening. So an async function, asynchronous function, is basically something that doesn't run the second the page loads, which is what JavaScript is like really big on. Is, you know, it runs everything line by line, and it runs the second the page loads. But sometimes, you know, you're waiting for a particular instance for this to happen. So we have asynchronous functions where that only run when we want them to, and which makes websites, responsive, dynamic. They are the thing that makes JavaScript amazing, that gives Ajax for calls, that gives these wait times, so you're able to keep calling stuff. So when you're on Instagram and you're scrolling through pictures, they can't like load a million pictures because they don't know how long you're going to scroll. So they scroll like 5 pictures at a time, and they're able to accomplish that through asynchronous functions. And then the same we're doing with await here is it's telling it that, hey, we want to go in this sequence, even though this might take some time. We don't want you to go to the next one just because you have run this function. We want you to wait and make sure that what we wanted to get out of it was there. And once we have that response is when we move to the next one. So these are very 2 simple functions that I've written for typing the text and clicking buttons. And they have 3 things that they're asking for. They're asking for the selector, which is what we got from our inspect element when we went to that element. So this is our selector. Then the input when we're typing the text, what we want to be typed in, and then the ID. So the ID is important here because we're going to log in the console if we found whatever we were looking for, if we found that input button, because once we're going to write this, a lot of the applications are not going to have the same field. Some of them are not going to be required. Some of them are going to have extra fields that are required. So in order to have the application not break down, would tell us exactly what it was found and what wasn't found, we are going to give this like a name ourselves. It could be anything that you want to give it, and I'll show you how to do it right now. And we're gonna say, hey, this was found, and then if it was found, we wait for 1.5 seconds. But if it wasn't found, we're gonna, like, I put a 15-second timeout, and what I usually like to do is add a music sound to it too here, and I'm going to show you how to do this after. So once you add that sound, you have this program running in the background, and whenever there's an error, it's going to give you a ping, so you can go to Chromium and you can fix it, and then it keeps continuing. And so we're going to try to run one of these and change one of our functions. And the same with the click function, we're not using an input because we're not inputting anything. We've got a selector, we've got the same ID found, ID not found functionality. And now let's try to change these. We're not going to need this timeout, but let's get this selector for us, and let's edit this click button so we're able to use those functions that we wrote, and we're not repeating stuff. And so that was a click button function. And what do we need? We need our selector, and it already had the quotes, and we need an ID. So what I'm going to write for the ID is, because this was the click button for create account button. And then we're going to try one of the type text one to see if it's working, and then we'll refactor all of this. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat. And for type text, we have another input. So we have our selector here. We copy this, and this is going to be our input, our email. So we change the email, and then we write email input box here. And then try the type text for the same thing for the password box. Password, enter password input box, and then copy that, paste that, and just change the 9 here. Password confirmation input box. And so the place that we were getting an error was here. This input one was not available. So let's change this as well. And we write type text. Oh, no, it was a click button. Oh. click button. And we have our selector, and we're gonna write click referral box. Okay, and now let's run this again. Hopefully there aren't any bugs, but if not, we'll work through them together. And yeah, so it looks to be working okay. It's opened up. Please enter a valid email. Oh, we're having an error. Yay. Let's figure out what's the problem, and we'll get all of these console logs that we can work through and figure out. So we opened the browser, we navigated, the email input box not found. So the problem here is we did not write our await function, so it just moved on to the next one without waiting. And we were getting all of these errors, and it was going through stuff in a manner that it wasn't supposed to go through. So let's change all of this to await, and let's try again. And the thing is, a lot of this will happen and you wouldn't know what the errors are, but like Googling the error that you get in your console log can be extremely helpful. And that's why that's our best bet to keep looking at. See, things are working now. We create account. Let's, it's the same account. Nope. So we created this account. We got another error here. Let's take a look. That says we're getting all of these inputs that we want. Create account button found, email input box found, password input box found, all of these IDs that we had written and we were console logging. But then it says click referral box not found, and it gives us this error, which is no node selector for input 1 because we were not able to move there. And it did not end the program. I ended the program, but it's telling us exactly what we need to do, and it was going to wait till 15 seconds before it was going to end the program. So now let's change this to, where's our sample email 2? And we're going to get on that page where we're going to get stuck. So we're going to write another one of those and see what happens. And then we're just going to go through what we did, get some questions, and I'll tell you where you can get the final code for this if you wanted to take a look at what a final project looks like. So you created the account, you came here, another error because we don't have this selector. So apply manually. Copy selector, and now that we have our fancy function, we'll go here, await, click button. We get our selector and we call it apply manually button. I mean, honestly, you can call it anything that helps you figure out, and like see here, the same thing. We get the click referral box not found error because there was no selector that was called this. And we go back and we start, and now it should be working properly the way we want it. And the cool thing is, look at this, my cursor is just moving around, it's doing whatever it wants, and like all of that stuff is happening, and it's really nice. Oh man, I hate this. Okay, did not anticipate not changing this. So one thing that we can do is here to fix this is let variable is equal to 3, and then every time we run this, we're gonna, okay, let's move 5 right now just for the sake. And then one thing that we can do here is if we want a variable, right, sample email, we have our variable. So it's gonna just change because right now I'll write this function here that will just variable, can't spell variable to save my life, plus equal to 1. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna add 1 to the variable every time you run it. And hopefully then we don't have to manually enter it and like run into the same annoying bug again. So create the account, sample email 5, password. We do a click function, apply manually. We're doing this waiting. Clicks on, no, there's not clicking on where did you hear about us? Let's see what the error is here. Node not found. So what I think the cause for this error is that it took a little while to load and it did not like that. And so let's add something here. So it's not going to give us this error, click buttons. Let's just make this wait for 2500. And this like delay object is why we're seeing it being typed out. Otherwise our text will be typing out a lot faster. So if I were to remove this, it's gonna go a lot faster than it was now. So let's try to see how that would work. Okay. Opening a browser, and this is like the last one of these we'll do because I think it'll probably get boring. Change that. So let's just do this manually. Create an account. How did you hear about us? We're getting, no, not selector. So I don't know if this is a wait time error or if this is, we have the selector name wrong. But let's try this here. Click button. Yep, it's the right selector. Let's make this 5,000 and see if that this is a different error or if we're just waiting for the selector and it's messing up. So the thing why it wasn't updating was because oh man, this is all right. Let's try again. So the reason why our variable here is not updating is because it's not being saved anywhere. So every time we run the program, it's just giving us like it's starting at 5 and it's not starting at a new one. So it did not fix our problem. But if it was connected to a backend, or if there was state management, if we were using something like React and we're able to change the state every time, then we would have been able to update it to have a new number. So we didn't have to manually change it every single time. So let's see if this is apply manually. We're here. We're doing a lot of waiting. Hey, it worked. It opened up. It's telling us what we need and it's going exactly where it should be going. And so there's a lot of fields here, and then you keep like saving, continuing, and you get through the right ones. And it's a very similar concept of like using the click function, using the wait functions, using just the typing functions. So it does not, think you're a bot and blacklist your application, but it also will take like 1 minute to apply to one company instead of like 30 minutes, and it's gonna save you a lot of heartache and a lot of pain having to do something like this. And at this point, I would just love to take questions, and like feel free to unmute yourself and talk out loud, and ask if you didn't understand anything, and what you would need to actually use something like this in the future and feel, comfortable with it to automate stuff, and what other use cases you think might be there. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello. Anybody, any questions? All right. I think this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed. So you can contact me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on the Discord channel. I'm Surbhi on there. On LinkedIn, I'm Hello Surbhi. My website is Surbhi.dev. I write a lot of posts about automation, about front end on my blog on Surbhi.dev, and my Twitter, Hello Surbhi. So feel free to say hi on any of those channels. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. There's also the GitHub link for if you want to make your own Puppeteer projects. There's the Workday link if you want to see how a final project that's completely automated works. If you want to see how other projects work, I've created a similar project for Amazon for their research purposes to scrape data from multiple government websites. I've created projects to find, vaccinations at areas where they go really fast for populations that might need it more than, people our age. I've created multiple use cases that you can find on my GitHub, like website, and just feel free to come say hi. Thank you so much, guys. This was fun.